The atmosphere in the courtroom buzzed with an unusual mix of anticipation and skepticism as the audience settled into their seats. This was no ordinary trial. It was a high-profile case that had captured the attention of the media and public alike. At the center of it all was none other than Steve Harvey, a man known for his quick wit, charm, and knack for making people laugh. Today, however, he found himself in a very different role, one that demanded not just his charisma, but also his intellect. As Harvey entered the courtroom, the murmurs of spectators filled the air. Some had come to witness a celebrity in action, while others were eager to see what role he would play in this unfolding drama. The case revolved around a complex legal dispute involving several high-profile figures, and Harvey's presence raised eyebrows and expectations. Many wondered what insights he could possibly offer in such a serious setting. The judge presiding over the trial was known for his stern demeanor and no-nonsense attitude. He had built a reputation for being tough but fair, commanding respect from those who appeared before him. However, on this particular day, he seemed to take particular pleasure in dismissing Harvey's potential contributions. As Steve took his seat at the witness stand, the judge leaned forward, an amused smirk playing on his lips. "Mr. Harvey," the judge began with an edge of sarcasm in his voice, "I hope you have more to offer than just punchlines and game show trivia." The laughter that followed from the gallery was laced with disbelief and intrigue. It was evident that the judge believed he had already figured out who Steve Harvey was, a mere entertainer without any true understanding of legal matters. But as the proceedings continued, it became clear that underestimating Steve would be a grave mistake. He sat there calmly, absorbing the judge's jibes with an unflappable demeanor that hinted at an inner strength. Those familiar with Harvey knew that behind his jovial exterior lay a sharp mind. Yet few could have anticipated how deftly he would navigate this unexpected legal landscape. The case itself was complicated, involving allegations of fraud and breach of contract among multiple parties. As Harvey began to testify about his experiences related to the matter at hand, he spoke with clarity and purpose. Each word seemed carefully chosen, as if he were crafting not just answers, but an engaging narrative that would draw everyone in, a skill honed over years of entertaining millions on television. Yet even as he spoke, the judge continued to interject with subtle jabs designed to belittle him further. "So tell us, Mr. Harvey," he quipped dryly, "how does hosting a game show prepare you for understanding legal jargon?" The room erupted in laughter again, but this time there was a hint of tension underneath, an awareness that perhaps they were witnessing something more than just comedy. It was during one of these exchanges that Steve decided to pivot from humor to substance. With poise that belied his circumstances, Harvey began to dissect intricate details of contracts and legal principles relevant to the case. He articulated points about consumer rights and business ethics with a surprising depth that caught everyone off guard. The judge's expression shifted subtly as he listened intently, slowly beginning to grasp that there was more to Steve than met the eye. Gone were the smirks. Instead came a furrowed brow as he jotted down notes. The audience could feel the shift, the collective realization that they were witnessing an unexpected clash between comedy and law, where one man's quick thinking might just turn the tide of justice. As Harvey continued his testimony, weaving anecdotes from his life into serious legal discourse, a palpable energy filled the room. It became increasingly evident that this wasn't merely a battle of wits. It was about respect for knowledge regardless of one's professional background. And so began an unexpected duel between humor and seriousness, a courtroom drama like no other, where one man's genius would soon emerge from beneath layers of mockery and stereotypes. Little did they know that this would not just be another case. It would be a lesson in recognizing intelligence where it may be least expected. As the courtroom settled into a tense silence, the judge leaned back in his chair, eyeing Steve Harvey with a blend of skepticism and amusement. He had seen many witnesses come before him, each bringing their own expertise to the stand. But here was a man best known for his quick quips and entertaining persona, and the judge was not about to let that slide without comment. The judge cleared his throat, adjusting his glasses as he prepared to address Harvey. "Mr. Harvey," he began, his tone dripping with condescension, You do understand that this is a court of law and not a comedy club, don't you? The laughter that erupted from the audience filled the room like an electric charge, punctuating the judge's dismissal. It was clear he relished this moment, enjoying the opportunity to put the celebrity in his place. Harvey smiled politely, unfazed by the judge's remarks. He had been in front of cameras and crowds for years, adept at handling criticism and mockery. Yet there was something different about this situation. The stakes were higher than any television show or stand-up routine he had ever performed. This was about justice and how one perceived it could alter lives in profound ways. The judge continued with an air of superiority. I'm sure your experience as a game show host has equipped you for this moment. But I hope you can offer us something more substantial than just flashy one-liners. His words dripped with sarcasm as he glanced at the jury, who appeared taken aback by the judge's blatant disregard for Harvey's capabilities. As Harvey took a deep breath, he could feel the weight of expectation pressing down on him. Here he was, a man who had built a career on connecting with people through laughter and storytelling, now standing in a space where those skills were being undermined. But instead of letting anger or embarrassment cloud his judgment, he chose to respond with grace. Your Honor, Harvey said calmly, comedy is often rooted in truth, and sometimes those truths can be quite revealing. The audience leaned in closer, their curiosity piqued. Would this be the moment where Harvey would turn the tide against his detractors? The judge raised an eyebrow, but remained unconvinced. Revealing? We'll see about that. He replied curtly, clearly eager to maintain control of the courtroom narrative. His dismissive attitude seemed to hang in the air like an unwelcome guest, casting shadows over Harvey's every word. With each subsequent question from opposing counsel, the judge interjected with further jabs aimed at undermining Harvey's credibility. So tell me, Mr. Harvey, he asked pointedly after another exchange of testimony, are you truly qualified to weigh in on matters of contract law? Or are you simply here to entertain us? Harvey tightened his grip on the edges of the witness stand, but kept his expression steady. Your Honor, he replied evenly, I may not be a lawyer by trade, but I've spent years negotiating contracts and navigating complex agreements in my career. He paused for effect before continuing. Understanding people and their intentions is essential in both comedy and law. But instead of acknowledging Harvey's point, the judge waved him off dismissively. Negotiating deals for a game show isn't quite the same as understanding legal obligations and liabilities, he retorted sharply. Again, laughter erupted among spectators, though this time it felt tinged with discomfort. What transpired next would become pivotal to both Harvey's case and his reputation within those walls. As the back and forth continued, it became increasingly clear that beneath the judge's mocking facade lay a deep-seated bias, a belief that entertainers could not possibly grasp serious matters such as law and ethics. Yet Steve remained undeterred. With each jab from the bench, he listened carefully and responded thoughtfully. His demeanor exuded patience and resilience, qualities honed from years of performing under intense scrutiny. As moments turned into minutes, it became apparent that while the judge sought to diminish Steve's worthiness as a witness through mockery, there was an undercurrent of tension brewing, an awareness that perhaps this entertainer held more insight than anyone had anticipated. In this courtroom drama, where humor met hubris, it seemed inevitable that a reckoning awaited both Steve Harvey and the presiding judge, a moment when perceptions would shift and assumptions would crumble under pressure. What started as dismissiveness would soon transform into an unexpected confrontation between intellect and arrogance, one that would redefine not just their roles, but also the very essence of respect within these hallowed halls of justice. As the courtroom drama unfolded, Steve Harvey remained a picture of calm amidst the swirling tension. Despite the judge's pointed mockery and the audience's palpable anticipation, he sat straight and composed, an aura of confidence radiating from him. Each time the judge delivered a cutting remark, Harvey responded not with defensiveness or anger, but with a measured grace that only added to his presence. The judge's condescension had been sharp, designed to belittle and provoke, yet Harvey maintained his cool. He understood the importance of staying grounded in such a charged environment. Years spent in front of cameras had taught him the value of composure, especially when faced with challenges. His ability to remain serene was not just a personal trait. It was a strategic choice in this high-stakes setting. When the judge issued another sarcastic quip about Harvey's career as a comedian, suggesting that laughter had no place in serious matters, Steve took a moment to breathe. He recognized that the courtroom was not merely a battleground for egos, but a space where truth needed to prevail. Instead of retaliating with humor or frustration, he leaned into his experience as an entertainer who often found himself navigating complex relationships and emotions. "Your Honor," he began, his voice steady and calm, "laughter can illuminate truths that are often hard to see." He paused for emphasis, letting his words resonate in the charged atmosphere. "In comedy, we explore human nature and our shared experiences. I believe those insights can translate into understanding even within legal contexts." The judge raised an eyebrow at this unexpected perspective, but remained skeptical. Yet there was something about Harvey's demeanor, his unwavering confidence, combined with an earnestness, that began to shift the room's energy. The jurors listened intently, intrigued by how he was handling himself under scrutiny. With every question posed by both sides, Harvey's responses were thoughtful and articulate. He addressed each query with clarity, drawing on his experiences in a way that made complex legal concepts accessible. The calmness he exuded seemed infectious. Even the spectators found themselves leaning forward in their seats, captivated by how effectively he navigated the proceedings. Despite the judge's continued attempts to undermine him with jibes like, "Is this really your expertise?" or "What do you know about contracts?" Harvey simply smiled and answered with poise. "Your Honor," he replied matter-of-factly, "I've spent years negotiating deals that impact not just my career, but also other people's livelihoods. It may not be traditional law practice, but it has given me unique insights into intentions and responsibilities." His calm demeanor served as a shield against the negativity directed at him. It transformed what could have been a humiliating experience into an opportunity for connection and understanding. The jury began to take notice of this transformation, their initial skepticism fading as they witnessed Harvey's ability to engage thoughtfully with complex issues. As the trial progressed, Harvey continued to maintain his composure even when faced with pointed questions designed to provoke a reaction. He understood that losing his cool would only play into the judge's hands, a trap laid out by someone who seemed determined to diminish his credibility at every turn. Instead of rising to the bait, Harvey chose patience as his weapon. During one particularly tense exchange where opposing counsel attempted to corner him with technical jargon, Steve's calm never wavered. He listened intently before responding carefully and deliberately. "I may not be a lawyer," he said slowly, allowing his words to settle in the room like ripples in still water. "But I believe that understanding people is key to any negotiation, whether it's on stage or in court." The audience shifted uneasily in their seats. They could feel something changing in the dynamics of this courtroom battle. The judge frowned slightly at this response, clearly unprepared for such a measured retort from someone he had initially dismissed so easily. In that moment, Steve Harvey transformed from just another witness into a formidable presence, a man who not only understood the nuances of entertainment, but also possessed an innate grasp of human dynamics that transcended legalities. His calm demeanor became more than just a personal attribute. It was an essential element of strategy that could very well turn the tide of this trial. Harvey's composure forced those around him to reconsider their assumptions about who he was and what he could bring to the proceedings. It became evident that beneath his poised exterior lay an intellect capable of dissecting complex issues, a genius waiting to be acknowledged despite all prior mockery. As tensions simmered down within the courtroom walls, one thing became clear. Steve's calm was not merely an act. It was a testament to his character and resilience, qualities that would soon prove pivotal as this trial unfolded further along its unpredictable path. As the courtroom proceedings unfolded, the nature of the case began to reveal itself more clearly, providing context for the high-stakes drama that surrounded Steve Harvey. At its core, the trial involved a complex web of allegations concerning a fraudulent business venture that had drawn in numerous celebrities and public figures. The stakes were incredibly high, not just financially, but also in terms of reputations and public trust. The case centered around a high-profile investment company that had promised returns on ventures tied to entertainment projects. Many prominent figures had invested their money, believing they were backing legitimate opportunities. However, as investigations progressed, it became apparent that the company's leadership had been engaging in deceptive practices, leading to significant losses for its investors. As a result, the trial sought to uncover the truth behind these allegations and determine who was ultimately responsible. Steve Harvey found himself in a unique position within this unfolding drama. He was not merely a witness. He had been one of the investors drawn into this tangled web, and his insights held potential significance for both sides of the case. His experience as a television personality provided him with an understanding of the entertainment industry's inner workings, making him a valuable asset when it came to deciphering the motivations and actions of those involved. As the prosecution laid out their arguments against the company's leadership, they painted a picture of deceit and manipulation. Emails and financial records were presented as evidence, showing how promises have been made and broken. The prosecution aimed to demonstrate that many individuals have been misled by false representations meant to entice them into investing their hard-earned money. Steve's role became increasingly vital as he took the stand to provide his perspective on these dealings. He was prepared to share not only his experiences, but also his understanding of how such schemes could operate within the entertainment industry, a realm often characterized by glitz and glamour, but also rife with risks. The defense, on the other hand, sought to downplay Harvey's involvement and credibility. They attempted to argue that as a celebrity, he should have known better than to invest in what they labeled as questionable schemes. Their strategy hinged on framing Harvey as someone who acted impulsively without conducting due diligence, a tactic designed to undermine his testimony and shift blame away from the company's executives. As Harvey began sharing his narrative, he reflected on how he had been drawn into the investment under the impression that it was backed by reputable individuals in the industry. He spoke candidly about his initial excitement and optimism regarding the venture, emphasizing that it was marketed to him as an opportunity to support innovative projects while also reaping financial rewards. In recounting his experience, Steve highlighted key moments where red flags should have been raised, promises that seemed too good to be true, vague explanations about business operations, and an unsettling reluctance from company representatives when pressed for details. His testimony painted a vivid picture of how even seasoned investors like himself could be led astray in an environment where trust often overshadowed caution. While sharing this story, Harvey maintained his calm demeanor. He presented his points clearly and confidently, ensuring that both jurors and spectators understood the implications of his experience. The depth of his insights began resonating with those watching. They could see how easily someone could fall victim to well-crafted narratives designed to obscure reality. As he continued on the witness stand, Steve also emphasized how essential it was for investors, especially those in the public eye, to scrutinize every opportunity thoroughly. He spoke passionately about accountability and transparency in business dealings, urging everyone to recognize their own responsibility in safeguarding their investments. The judge listened intently, momentarily setting aside his earlier skepticism toward Harvey's capabilities. Each word from Steve carried weight as he articulated not just his narrative but also broader lessons about integrity within the business world. With each passing moment, it became clear that Steve Harvey's involvement in this case was more than just incidental. He represented a voice for many who found themselves ensnared in similar situations, those who had believed in dreams only to encounter harsh realities. As these revelations unfolded within the courtroom walls, it was evident that this case wasn't merely about financial loss. It was about trust shattered by deception and understanding how easily anyone could be misled. Steve's testimony breathed life into this complex narrative while simultaneously positioning him as an unexpected force within a legal battle fraught with tension. In navigating through these intricacies of deceit and ambition, both sides understood that uncovering the truth would require more than just legal arguments. It would necessitate empathy and insight, qualities that Steve Harvey brought forth with every word he shared on that fateful day in court. As the trial progressed, something remarkable began to unfold in the courtroom. Steve Harvey, once viewed merely as a comedian and television personality, began to unveil a depth of legal knowledge that left both the judge and the audience stunned. This transformation was not just about defending himself. It was about asserting his credibility in a world that had initially dismissed him. With each question posed by the opposing counsel, Harvey's responses became increasingly detailed and insightful. He had spent considerable time preparing for this moment, immersing himself in the intricacies of contract, law, and the specificities surrounding the investment he had made. His dedication was evident as he began to articulate complex legal concepts with clarity and confidence. When questioned about the nature of his investment, Harvey didn't simply recount his experiences. He delved into the underlying legal principles that guided them. "Your Honor," he began, addressing the judge directly, "when I invested, I was presented with a series of documents outlining terms that were supposed to protect my interests." He paused, allowing his words to resonate before continuing. These contracts included clauses on liability and recourse in case of misrepresentation. The judge's eyebrows raised slightly, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. It was evident that he had not anticipated such a well-informed response from someone he had mocked earlier in proceedings. Harvey continued, laying out the specifics of what those clauses meant and how they were designed to safeguard investors like himself from potential fraud. He elaborated on key terms: due diligence, fiduciary duty, and material misrepresentation, demonstrating not only his grasp of legal terminology, but also his understanding of their implications. The audience listened intently, captivated by this unexpected turn. The courtroom atmosphere shifted. Skepticism transformed into intrigue. Jurors exchanged glances, realizing that they were witnessing a man who could seamlessly transition from entertainment to serious legal discourse, a feat few could manage so effectively. As Harvey laid out his arguments, he emphasized how critical it was for investors to understand their rights and responsibilities within these agreements. He spoke passionately about the importance of transparency in business dealings, illustrating how many individuals fell victim to deceptive practices due to a lack of comprehension regarding their contractual obligations. Investing isn't just about believing in a vision, he asserted firmly. It's about understanding what you're signing up for, what protections are in place if things go wrong. His voice resonated with authority, cutting through any remaining doubts about his competence. The judge leaned forward, intrigued by Harvey's command over the subject matter. "And how does that relate to your experience with this investment?" he asked, genuinely curious. Harvey took a moment to gather his thoughts before responding. "In this case," he explained, "the company failed to provide adequate information regarding the risks involved in their projects. They skirted around disclosure requirements that would have informed us about their financial stability and past performance." He gestured emphatically as he spoke, drawing everyone's attention to how critical these points were for potential investors. With each revelation, it became increasingly clear that Steve's initial portrayal as merely an entertainer was fading away. Instead, he emerged as an articulate advocate for investor rights, a role he had not anticipated stepping into when he entered the courtroom. As the prosecution rested its case and turned toward cross-examination, they too began to recognize Harvey's growing influence on proceedings. They attempted to undermine his newfound confidence by questioning whether he truly understood the documents he had signed or if he had merely trusted those presenting them to him. Yet each time they poked holes into his credibility, Steve countered with facts and figures gleaned from his extensive research on not just his own investments, but also similar cases within the industry. His ability to reference previous rulings and establish precedents showcased an impressive level of preparation that belied any prior assumptions made about him. "Your Honor," Steve said during one exchange with opposing counsel, I can assure you that I've looked at cases where investors like myself sought recourse after being misled, and often it comes down to whether there was clarity and honesty in communication. His tone was steady yet firm, demonstrating an unwavering commitment to presenting the truth. The courtroom remained silent as Steve continued articulating his points with unwavering clarity. The judge appeared more engaged than ever before, his previous dismissive attitude replaced by genuine interest in what Harvey had to offer. The jurors sat forward in their seats, drawn into this unexpected narrative where their preconceived notions were being challenged head-on. By unveiling his legal knowledge in such an impressive manner, Steve Harvey transformed from figure of ridicule into an unexpected hero within this courtroom saga. One who championed awareness and accountability against deception while simultaneously dismantling stereotypes surrounding entertainers' capabilities. As the day drew on, it became clear that this trial would not only define the outcome of a significant case, it would reshape perceptions surrounding intelligence and expertise across professions, reminding everyone present that wisdom can emerge from even the most unlikely sources when given an opportunity to shine. As the trial continued, Steve Harvey deftly navigated the complexities of the courtroom, seamlessly blending his legal insights with moments of humor that both entertained and engaged his audience. His strategic use of humor became a powerful tool, allowing him to break tension while simultaneously reinforcing his credibility. It was a skill honed over years in the entertainment industry, where timing and relatability were essential. In the face of the judge's earlier mockery, Harvey recognized that humor could serve as both a shield and a sword, a way to disarm skepticism while establishing rapport with the jury. Rather than retreating into defensiveness when questioned about his qualifications or experience, he embraced the challenge with wit and charm, turning potentially hostile exchanges into light-hearted moments that showcased his personality. During one particularly tense moment in cross-examination, opposing counsel attempted to undermine his credibility by asking if he had truly read all the fine print in his investment documents. "Come on now," the attorney scoffed. "Who really reads those things? I mean, they're long enough to put anyone to sleep." The gallery chuckled, but Steve seized this opportunity to respond with a smile that lit up the room. "Your Honor," he said playfully, "I might not be an attorney, but I can promise you I've read more fine print than most people read in their entire lifetimes. If I had $1 for every time I've had to decipher legal jargon, I'd have enough to retire comfortably." Laughter erupted throughout the courtroom, including from some of the jurors who had initially been skeptical of his involvement. This clever pivot not only lightened the mood, but also reinforced Harvey's point. He was engaged and informed about what he was discussing. The humor served to humanize him in the eyes of the jury and even somewhat softened the judge's demeanor. Instead of seeing a celebrity caught in a serious situation, they began to view him as a relatable figure who faced challenges just like anyone else. Throughout his testimony, Steve employed humor strategically to emphasize key points. He often used anecdotes from his life, personal stories that illustrated broader themes relevant to the case at hand. By doing so, he created connections between himself and those listening. For instance, when discussing trust and business relationships, he recounted a humorous mishap from his early career in showbiz, where he had mistakenly trusted someone who turned out to be unreliable. "I remember one time," he recounted with a twinkle in his eye, "I signed on for a project thinking I was going to be on stage with some big names. Turns out, it was just me and my cousin Charlie performing for our family reunion." The laughter that followed allowed him to pivot back into serious territory while reinforcing his message about due diligence and trustworthiness. His ability to keep spirits high amidst serious topics made him an effective communicator in this high-pressure environment. When discussing potential misrepresentations made by the investment firm, Harvey cleverly quipped about how misleading advertising could easily happen anywhere, whether it be in business or on television screens. Sometimes, he joked, you just have to wonder if those cereal boxes are promoting healthy breakfast or sugar-coated happiness. The audience erupted again. Even the judge struggled to suppress a smile. This moment provided a necessary breath of fresh air amid proceedings that were often heavy with tension. However, Harvey's humor was never frivolous. It always served a purpose. Each joke was carefully crafted to underscore serious points about integrity and accountability within business dealings. By employing relatable humor, he ensured that critical messages resonated without appearing overly pedantic or preachy. As testimony continued, Steve recognized when it was appropriate to inject levity and when it was critical to maintain seriousness. He managed this balance expertly. For instance, during moments when emotions ran high or when evidence presented was particularly damning for the defendants, he refrained from making jokes out of respect for those involved. Yet whenever tensions threatened to escalate or when skepticism loomed large, especially from opposing counsel, Harvey would skillfully navigate back toward humor as a way to reestablish control over the narrative. This ability not only showcased his versatility, but also highlighted his understanding of human nature, a trait that served him well both on stage and in court. With each laugh shared in that courtroom came an opportunity for connection. Every chuckle served as a reminder that even amid serious circumstances, humanity prevails through laughter. By infusing moments of joy into intense discussions about fraud and accountability, Steve transformed what could have been merely another legal battle into an engaging exploration of trustworthiness and integrity, a lesson wrapped in humor that transcended conventional courtroom expectations. Through this strategic use of humor, Steve Harvey not only disarmed critics, but also transformed perceptions about himself as an entertainer capable of navigating serious topics with intelligence and grace. As he continued through his testimony with laughter echoing around him, it became clear that this trial would leave an indelible mark, not just on legal proceedings, but also on how stories could be told through the lens of both gravity and levity. As the trial progressed, a palpable shift began to occur in the courtroom atmosphere. What started as a space filled with skepticism towards Steve Harvey was gradually transforming into one of respect and admiration. The turning tide was marked by a series of powerful moments that showcased not only Harvey's legal acumen, but also his ability to connect with the jury on a deeper level. The pivotal moment came during a particularly intense session of cross-examination. The defense attorney, determined to undermine Harvey's credibility, launched into a barrage of pointed questions aimed at discrediting his testimony. "Mr. Harvey," the attorney asked sharply, "do you really believe that someone like you, with no formal legal training, could fully understand the intricacies of a multi-million-dollar investment?" The courtroom fell silent as all eyes turned to Steve, who had faced similar challenges time and again in his career, but had never backed down from an opportunity to assert himself. This time was no different. He took a deep breath, allowing the tension in the air to settle before responding. "Your Honor," he stated with conviction, "I may not have a law degree, but I've spent years navigating deals and negotiating contracts in an industry where trust is everything." There was an immediate shift in energy as jurors leaned forward in their seats, captivated by his unwavering confidence. Harvey continued, "Understanding the dynamics of business relationships is essential for anyone involved, whether they're a celebrity or a seasoned lawyer. That's where my expertise lies." His words resonated deeply, challenging the preconceived notions held by both the judge and jury about who could possess valuable insights into complex issues. The defense attorney's attempts to belittle him began to feel feeble against the weight of Harvey's experience and perspective. As he articulated his points clearly and confidently, it became apparent that he was more than capable of holding his own. Then came a moment that would change everything, a moment that encapsulated the essence of his testimony while forcing everyone present to reconsider their biases. In response to another question about the company's fraudulent practices, Steve chose to share a personal story that illustrated the broader implications of deceit in business. "Let me tell you something," he began, his tone shifting from defensive to reflective. "When I first started out in this industry, I faced my fair share of challenges. There were times when I trusted people who didn't deserve it, individuals who promised me the world but delivered nothing." He paused for effect, allowing the weight of his words to sink in. I remember one specific situation where I lost a significant amount of money because I failed to ask the right questions, he continued. I learned that lesson the hard way, but it taught me something invaluable. Trust must be earned through transparency and integrity. The sincerity in his voice struck a chord with everyone listening. As he shared this story, Harvey's demeanor remained calm, yet passionate. He spoke with sincerity about how deceptive practices could ruin lives, not just financially, but emotionally as well. This wasn't just about him. It was about every investor who had ever been misled or manipulated by false promises. The judge listened intently, his earlier dismissiveness softening as he began to appreciate the depth of Harvey's character and understanding of human nature. The jurors exchanged glances, realizing that they were witnessing something transformative, a man who had risen above ridicule and taken ownership of his narrative. With each word spoken, Harvey turned skepticism into empathy, challenging not only perceptions of himself, but also broader assumptions about trust within business dealings. His ability to transform personal experiences into lessons applicable to everyone resonated deeply with those present. As he wrapped up his story, there was an unmistakable shift in how he was perceived. No longer just a figurehead from television screens, Steve had become an advocate for accountability and honesty, a voice for those who felt powerless against deception in their own lives. The prosecution seized upon this momentum as they further questioned him about specific details related to his investment and interactions with company leaders. Each question brought forth more insights from Harvey, who now spoke with renewed vigor, bolstered by the jury's growing support. The courtroom atmosphere evolved from one filled with skepticism toward reverence. Harvey had successfully turned the tide, transforming himself from an object of mockery into a credible witness whose experiences held weight and significance. By demonstrating not only legal knowledge, but also an understanding of fundamental human values, trust, integrity, accountability, Steve Harvey managed to shift perceptions dramatically within those walls. The judge's demeanor softened further as he recognized that this trial transcended mere legalities. It was about justice and fairness for all involved. As proceedings continued, it became clear that Steve's contribution would have lasting effects on this case, and perhaps beyond it as well. The turning tide marked not just a significant moment in this trial, but also an evolution in how society perceives individuals based on their backgrounds and experiences. In that courtroom, laughter and seriousness coalesced seamlessly around Harvey's journey, a testament to resilience in challenging situations where even the most unlikely figures can rise above adversity and make their voices heard loud and clear. With every passing moment, it became evident this was no ordinary trial. It was a defining chapter in both Steve Harvey's life and the larger narrative surrounding accountability in business practices everywhere. As the trial unfolded, the atmosphere in the courtroom continued to shift dramatically. The judge, who had initially approached Steve Harvey with a sense of superiority and skepticism, began to face a profound realization about his earlier judgments. The transformation was subtle at first, a furrowed brow during Harvey's testimony, a slight tilt of the head when he made particularly insightful points. Yet, as the days progressed and the trial continued, it became increasingly evident that the judge was reevaluating his perception of the man before him. The pivotal moment occurred during a particularly charged session, where Steve had just delivered one of his most compelling statements regarding the principles of trust and honesty in business. "Your Honor," he had said, "when people invest their hard-earned money, they're not just buying into a project, they're placing their faith in the people behind it. That faith is sacred, and when it's betrayed, it can have devastating consequences." His words hung in the air, resonating deeply with everyone present. For the first time, the judge found himself reflecting on his own biases. He had entered this trial with preconceived notions about celebrity figures, assumptions that entertainers were little more than performers without serious contributions to discussions of ethics or legality. But as he observed Steve's articulate arguments and witnessed his depth of understanding, those stereotypes began to crumble. The judge's demeanor shifted from condescension to contemplation. He leaned forward, resting his chin on his hand, as if considering every word spoken by Harvey. The laughter that had once filled the courtroom with mockery now transformed into moments of genuine engagement. Even he could not help but recognize that Steve was not merely an entertainer, but a man who had navigated a complex world of contracts and relationships. During one particular exchange with opposing counsel, Steve offered an example from his own career that further underscored this newfound respect. "There was a time," he recounted, "when I was misled by someone I trusted implicitly. I thought I knew them well enough to ignore due diligence. That mistake cost me dearly." As he shared this story, there was an unmistakable sincerity in his voice, a candid acknowledgement of vulnerability that resonated with everyone in the room. The judge listened intently as Steve detailed how that experience shaped him into a more cautious investor and a more astute observer of character. "I realized," Harvey continued, "that trust is not something that should ever be taken lightly. It has to be built over time, through transparency and honesty." At this moment, the judge found himself reflecting on his own role within the justice system. He pondered whether he had similarly underestimated people based on their backgrounds or appearances throughout his career. The thought weighed heavily on him as he considered how many others might have faced similar challenges without being given an opportunity to prove themselves. As proceedings continued to unfold, moments like these were becoming increasingly common. The judge found himself not only captivated by Harvey's testimonies, but also inspired by the underlying messages about resilience and integrity. It was a lesson in humility for him, a reminder that wisdom can come from unexpected places. Even when opposing counsel attempted to undermine Steve's credibility with pointed questions designed to provoke defensiveness or ridicule, Harvey maintained his composure and responded thoughtfully each time. He never wavered under pressure. Instead, he used those moments to reinforce his points about accountability and trustworthiness. With each successive day in court, it became clear that the judge was evolving alongside the proceedings. Gone were the days when he viewed Harvey through the narrow lens of celebrity. Instead, he began seeing him as an individual who brought valuable insights into discussions about ethics and business. By this point in the trial, there were subtle changes in how the judge conducted himself. His questions became more probing, but also more respectful, reflecting genuine curiosity rather than disdain. He began addressing Harvey with a newfound tone of acknowledgement. Instead of dismissive remarks layered with sarcasm, he posed queries that encouraged deeper exploration of complex topics. In those moments of realization, it became apparent that both men were engaged in a form of dialogue that transcended their initial perceptions, their interactions evolving from mere courtroom exchanges into meaningful conversations about integrity and trust. As evidence continued to unfold and testimonies further illuminated the case at hand, one thing stood out. This trial was no longer just about legalities. It was about understanding human nature itself, an exploration into how individuals shape one another through their actions and choices. The judge's journey toward realization reflected a broader theme within society, recognizing potential beyond appearances and embracing humility when confronted with unexpected insights. As he sat there contemplating these lessons learned through Harvey's testimony, it became clear that this courtroom drama would leave an indelible mark, not just on the case itself, but also on everyone present who witnessed transformation unfold before their eyes. With each passing day in court, Steve made strides toward reshaping perceptions, not only about himself, but also about what it means to engage meaningfully within systems often predicated upon assumptions and biases. And as for the judge, he emerged from this experience forever changed, reminded that wisdom comes wrapped in all sorts of packages if only one takes time to look beyond surface-level judgments. As the courtroom drama unfolded, the impact on the jury became increasingly evident. Initially, they had entered the trial with a sense of skepticism, especially regarding Steve Harvey's role as a witness. The judge's earlier mockery had set a tone that framed Harvey as an entertainer with little to contribute to serious legal discussions. However, As the days progressed and Steve began to articulate his insights with clarity and authority, the jurors found themselves re-evaluating their initial impressions. The pivotal shift occurred during a particularly compelling segment of Harvey's testimony, where he discussed the importance of trust in business relationships. He shared poignant stories about his own experiences, narratives that resonated deeply with the jurors, many of whom had faced their own challenges in professional and personal trust building. Trust is built over time, he had stated emphatically. It requires transparency and honesty, and when those are lacking, it can lead to devastating consequences. His words hung in the air, striking a chord with everyone present. The jurors began to lean forward in their seats, engaged not just by what Harvey was saying, but by how he was saying it. There was an authenticity in his delivery that drew them in, transforming him from a mere celebrity into a relatable figure who understood the intricacies of human relationships. This evolution in their perception marked a significant turning point. Throughout his testimony, Steve employed strategic humor that further endeared him to the jury. Each well-timed joke lightened the mood while reinforcing his core messages about accountability and integrity. Whenever he made a humorous remark about his experiences in entertainment, like navigating contracts that seemed more like novels than agreements, the jury chuckled, feeling a sense of camaraderie with him. These moments helped break down barriers and fostered a sense of connection between him and the jurors. As they watched Harvey navigate challenging questions from opposing counsel with poise and confidence, the jurors' respect for him grew. They saw not just a man under scrutiny, but a person who was willing to stand up for what he believed in, someone who valued integrity and transparency over frivolity. This realization transformed their understanding of what it meant to be an investor embroiled in complex situations. In stark contrast to their initial skepticism, the jurors began to view Harvey as an advocate for those who had been wronged by deceptive practices within business dealings. His insights into how easily trust could be violated resonated deeply. Many recalled their own experiences where relationships had faltered due to miscommunication or dishonesty. Through Steve's storytelling, they were reminded that these issues extended beyond legalities. They were fundamentally human experiences. As deliberations approached, it was clear that Harvey's testimony had left an indelible mark on each juror's perspective. They began discussing among themselves how his character shone through amidst adversity, how he transformed potential ridicule into profound messages about resilience and ethics. The jury members reflected on how they had initially judged him based solely on his profession rather than recognizing the depth of knowledge he possessed. In private discussions during breaks from the trial proceedings, jurors expressed admiration for Steve's ability to engage them emotionally while also providing critical insights into the case at hand. They recognized that this wasn't merely about celebrity or showmanship. It was about integrity and ensuring accountability within business practices, a lesson they felt compelled to take seriously. As deliberations commenced after closing arguments from both sides, jurors found themselves grappling with larger questions surrounding justice and fairness, not just for Steve, but for all individuals affected by fraudulent practices. They pondered how easily anyone could become entangled in similar situations if trust were compromised. By this point in the trial, it was evident that Steve had shifted not just individual perceptions, but also collective attitudes toward accountability within financial dealings. The jury understood that their verdict could send ripples far beyond this particular case. It could serve as a testament against deceitful practices rampant in various industries. As they returned to their seats to deliver their verdict, there was an air of expectancy mixed with weighty responsibility among the jurors. They understood that they held the power to influence outcomes based on more than just evidence presented. They were now stewards of principles that transcended legal frameworks. Ultimately, Steve Harvey's impact on the jury had evolved from mere entertainment value to something much more profound, a reminder that everyone has stories worth telling and lessons worth learning. In recognizing this truth, they were prepared to approach their decision-making process with empathy and consideration for all those involved. The courtroom atmosphere transformed into one filled with mutual respect. a space where perceptions shifted dramatically due to one man's courage to stand tall against adversity while advocating for trust and accountability in business dealings. As deliberations began, both Steve's journey and its effects on others served as a powerful reminder of how narratives can shape understanding even amidst complex legal battles. As the trial reached its conclusion, the atmosphere in the courtroom was charged with anticipation. The events of the past few weeks had unfolded like a gripping drama, complete with moments of humor, tension, and profound insights. Steve Harvey, once the target of mockery, had transformed into a powerful voice for accountability and integrity in business practices. Now, all eyes were on the jury as they prepared to deliver their verdict. The judge took his seat at the front, his demeanor markedly different from the sarcasm that had characterized the early sessions. He appeared contemplative, reflecting on the journey he'd taken alongside both Steve and the jury. The shift in perception about Harvey had not only affected the dynamics of the trial, but also influenced how the judge approached his role. He was no longer just a presiding officer. He was a participant in a larger narrative about justice and understanding. As the jury filed back into the room, there was a palpable tension in the air. Each member carried the weight of their responsibility, knowing that their decision could impact lives beyond just this case. They had spent hours deliberating, discussing not only the evidence presented, but also the lessons learned from Harvey's testimony. It was clear that they viewed this trial as more than just a legal matter. It had become a reflection on trust, ethics, and accountability within society. Once seated, the four persons stood to address the court. There was a moment of silence as everyone awaited her words, hearts racing with uncertainty about what would come next. "Your Honor," she began, her voice steady but laced with emotion, "we have reached a verdict." The room held its breath as she continued. "In regard to the charges against the defendants for fraud and misrepresentation, we find them guilty." A ripple of reactions coursed through the courtroom. Some jurors exchanged relieved glances while others appeared solemn. The verdict brought a sense of justice for those who had been wronged, including Steve himself. The judge nodded gravely, acknowledging the jury's decision with respect. "Thank you for your service and for taking this matter seriously," he said. His tone conveyed sincerity. It was clear he appreciated their dedication to uncovering truth amid complexities. Then came a moment of recognition for Steve Harvey, a man who had navigated ridicule and skepticism to emerge as an unexpected champion for transparency and integrity. He stood tall at that moment, embodying resilience and courage as he faced both challenges and triumphs throughout this ordeal. The judge turned to Steve, speaking directly to him now. "Mr. Harvey," he said, "you have shown remarkable strength throughout this trial. Your willingness to share personal experiences has added invaluable insight to this case." The acknowledgement was met with murmurs of approval from those in attendance. They recognized that Steve had not only defended himself, but also given voice to countless others who have faced similar struggles. Turning back to the jury, the judge continued, "Your duty is not just to deliver justice in this case, but also to remind us all of our responsibilities toward one another in business dealings." His words resonated deeply within those present, a call to action that extended beyond courtroom walls. As proceedings wrapped up and formalities concluded, applause erupted from spectators who had witnessed an extraordinary journey unfold before them. The applause wasn't just for Steve or even for the verdict. It was recognition of a shared experience where lessons were learned about trust and accountability. Steve stepped forward as he addressed those gathered in court. "Thank you all for believing in me," he said earnestly. "This isn't just about winning or losing. It's about standing up for what's right and holding ourselves accountable." His message transcended mere legalities. It was an appeal for greater integrity across industries. With that statement hanging in the air like a beacon of hope, it became clear that this trial would leave lasting impressions on everyone involved, an indelible mark on perceptions regarding trustworthiness within business practices. As jurors exited their seats and mingled with one another outside the courtroom doors, conversations sparked around shared experiences and common goals moving forward. They discussed how they might carry these lessons into their own lives, an acknowledgement that every interaction carries weight and meaning. In reflecting upon everything that transpired during this trial, from initial mockery to profound respect, it became evident that narratives matter deeply. How we choose to tell our stories shapes understanding across society. For Steve Harvey, this journey was not merely about vindication. It served as a powerful reminder of resilience amidst adversity, one that resonated far beyond mere legal proceedings. As people began to leave the courtroom behind them, each carrying their own perspectives, the impact of this trial lingered like an echo through time, reminding all who witnessed it that wisdom can emerge from unexpected places when given room to flourish amidst challenges faced along life's winding paths. As the courtroom doors closed behind them, the aftermath of the trial began to unfold in the lives of all those who had been touched by the experience. For Steve Harvey, this was not just a personal victory. It marked a significant moment of transformation that rippled through his career and public perception. No longer just a comedian known for his quick wit, he emerged as a figure of resilience and integrity, someone who had grappled with adversity and emerged stronger. In the days following the verdict, media outlets clamored to cover the story. Headlines celebrated Harvey's unexpected legal prowess and his ability to turn a courtroom filled with skepticism into one where respect and understanding prevailed. Interviews followed, with Steve reflecting on the journey he had undertaken, not just the trial itself, but the lessons learned along the way. He spoke candidly about how easy it was for anyone, regardless of status or background, to fall victim to deception in business dealings. His message resonated deeply with audiences who appreciated his honesty and vulnerability. Beyond his newfound reputation, Steve also took time to reflect on the broader implications of the trial. He recognized that it was more than just a personal struggle. It was a collective awakening regarding accountability in business practices. The lessons learned extended far beyond his individual experience. They resonated with countless others who had faced similar challenges in their own lives. In one interview, he noted, "This isn't just about me winning a case. It's about all of us recognizing our responsibility to each other in our interactions, whether personal or professional." As discussions swirled in public forums and online platforms, many began to echo Steve's sentiments. The trial had sparked conversations about integrity and trustworthiness within various industries, prompting individuals from different backgrounds to share their stories of navigating deceit and misrepresentation. Social media became a space for dialogue, where people expressed how important it was to hold companies accountable for their actions and ensure that transparency remained at the forefront of business practices. Meanwhile, the judge also found himself reflecting on the trial's outcome. Having undergone a transformation himself, he recognized that his initial mockery of Steve had stemmed from biases shaped by preconceived notions about celebrity figures. The experience forced him to confront these biases head-on, leading to moments of humility and self-awareness. In private conversations with colleagues, he shared how the trial taught him valuable lessons about respect and open-mindedness, reminding him that wisdom could come from unexpected sources. For the jurors, too, the aftermath was significant. Many found themselves discussing their experiences over coffee or during community gatherings, recounting how Harvey's testimony had shifted their perceptions not only of him, but also of what it meant to engage meaningfully within legal proceedings. They reflected on how easily judgments could be made based solely on appearances or professions when deeper insights often lay beneath the surface. Some jurors even organized community workshops focused on financial literacy and investor rights, an initiative born from their realization that many people remain unaware of how to protect themselves in business dealings. By sharing their experiences from the trial and discussing key takeaways regarding trust and accountability, they hope to empower others with knowledge that would help prevent future missteps. As time passed, Steve Harvey continued to leverage his platform to advocate for integrity within business practices. He became involved in initiatives aimed at educating individuals about smart investing and recognizing red flags and potential scams. Through speaking engagements and social media campaigns, he encouraged open conversations about ethics and transparency, turning his experience into an opportunity for positive change. Moreover, Harvey's journey inspired other public figures who faced similar scrutiny or challenges due to misconceptions about their capabilities outside of entertainment. They began sharing their own stories of overcoming adversity and standing up for what they believed in, fostering a sense of solidarity among those often underestimated due to their professions. In boardrooms across various industries, discussions about corporate ethics gained momentum as companies began reevaluating their communication strategies and commitment to transparency. Leaders acknowledged that fostering trust among consumers requires more than just promises. It necessitates genuine efforts toward accountability. As reflections on this extraordinary trial continued to unfold in various arenas, from personal conversations among friends to broader societal dialogues, it became clear that this experience transcended its initial confines within a courtroom. It served as a powerful reminder that narratives matter deeply. They shape perceptions while also inspiring change when given room to breathe. Ultimately, the aftermath of this trial left an indelible mark on everyone involved, a testament not only to individual resilience, but also collective responsibility toward fostering trust and integrity within society at large. Through shared experiences that connected people across boundaries, this courtroom saga evolved into something greater, a movement dedicated to safeguarding ethics in every interaction, whether personal or professional, so that everyone could benefit from lessons learned along life's winding paths. As the dust settled from the trial that had captivated audiences both inside and outside the courtroom, reflections on its broader implications began to take shape. The saga of Steve Harvey, once mocked and underestimated, had transformed into a powerful narrative about resilience, integrity, and the pursuit of justice. It served as a reminder that appearances can be deceiving and that wisdom often arises from the most unexpected places. In the wake of the trial, many began to reconsider their own biases and judgments. The initial perception of Steve as merely a comedian had shifted dramatically. He was now recognized as a figure who brought valuable insights into complex discussions about ethics and business. His journey highlighted an essential truth, that everyone deserves the opportunity to be heard and understood beyond the label society often assigns them. This case sparked important conversations within communities about trust, accountability, and the need for transparency in all forms of interaction, whether personal or professional. People began to share their own stories of being misled or taken advantage of in various circumstances. The collective sharing led to a deeper understanding of the importance of due diligence and vigilance in financial dealings. As individuals learned from one another's experiences, they established a sense of solidarity grounded in shared lessons about integrity. For those involved in the trial, be it jurors, spectators, or legal professionals, the experience became a catalyst for change. The jurors took their learnings into their communities, organizing workshops that emphasize financial literacy and the importance of questioning practices that seemed too good to be true. They realized that knowledge is power, and by equipping others with information, they could help prevent future injustices. The judge, too, emerged from this experience with a renewed commitment to humility and open-mindedness. He recognized that his role extended beyond simply adjudicating cases. It involved fostering an environment where all voices could be acknowledged and respected. This realization would shape his approach in future trials, reminding him to look beyond appearances and appreciate the depth of each individual's story. Steve Harvey's advocacy for accountability continued to resonate long after the trial concluded. He used his platform to speak out against fraudulent practices while encouraging others to stand up for themselves. His experiences became teaching moments, opportunities for dialogue aimed at preventing deception within business contexts. By sharing his journey through interviews, social media campaigns, and public speaking engagements, he inspired countless individuals to take charge of their own narratives. The legacy of this trial reached far beyond any single verdict. It became a rallying cry for those seeking justice in various forms. Many began to view accountability not just as a legal obligation, but as a moral imperative essential for building trust within communities. Organizations started implementing stricter ethical guidelines while encouraging employees to speak out against unethical behavior without fear of reprisal. Ultimately, this story serves as a profound reminder that every individual has something unique to contribute, regardless of their profession or public persona. It emphasizes the importance of listening actively and engaging meaningfully with others. In doing so, we create spaces where wisdom can flourish, nurturing an environment where everyone feels empowered to share their experiences and insights. As we reflect on this extraordinary courtroom saga involving Steve Harvey, a man who turned mockery into momentum, we are reminded that resilience lies at the heart of every challenge faced. It teaches us not only to rise above adversity, but also to uplift others along the way. The closing thoughts surrounding this trial reinforce our collective responsibility to seek understanding over judgment, transparency over deceit, and integrity over convenience. In embracing these principles, we can forge connections that transcend superficial barriers while cultivating a culture rooted in respect and empathy. As audiences continue discussing these themes long after the final gavel fell in courtrooms across America, one thing remains certain: stories matter profoundly. They shape perceptions while inspiring change when given room to breathe. From Steve's journey emerged powerful lessons about trustworthiness, lessons destined to echo through time as reminders for generations yet unborn. In closing, let's carry forward what we have learned, not just from this trial but also from one another, as we navigate life's complexities together. Let us champion integrity in our interactions while fostering environments where truth thrives amidst challenges faced along every winding road we traverse together as members of humanity.